But then there was an extended hospital stay
Yes.
in March. Can you describe for the jury what led up to that hospital stay?
Yes. Floyd, I went to go pick Floyd up from his house that night. I thought I was taking him to work. He wasn't feeling good. His stomach really hurt. He was doubled over in pain. Just wasn't feeling well, and he said he had to go to the hospital, so I took him straight to the hospital. We went to the ER, and they were checking him out in the ER, and it was getting late, and I had to get home to my son, so I left that Friday night.
Did you later learn that that was due to an overdose?
Yes.
Object, Your Honor. Lack of personal knowledge.
Overruled.
You spent several days with him at the hospital, correct?
Yes.
And did you learn what caused that overdose?
No.
At that time frame, did you learn that Mr. Floyd was taking anything other than opioids?
No.
You did not know that he had taken heroin at that time?
No.
And Mr. Floyd's overdose, that was at the beginning of March of 2020. He was hospitalized March 6th, agreed?
Yes.
Of 2020. And he was in the hospital for 10 or 11 days, something like that?
No. 5.
5 days. And when you took him to the hospital, did you notice foam coming from his mouth?
I noticed like some kind of, like, you know, foam building in the corners of his mouth, kind of
Like
dry.
a dry white substance?
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Morries Hall?
Yes.
And was Morries Hall the person that you and Mr. Floyd bought controlled substances from?
We had.
I'm going to show you a photograph. And just to you, you'll be the only one who can see it at this time. It's been previously marked as Defense Exhibit 1006.
Okay.
Can you see that photograph, ma'am?
No.
Just to her.
No.
Oh, sorry, I gotta hit this. Can you see that photograph, ma'am?
Yes.
Is that the person you know to be Morries Hall?
Yes.
And can you just generally describe what he's wearing?
Red hat, red pants, and a black and white shirt.
Okay. And that is up in the upper right-hand corner. Would you agree that that has the date of May 25th, 2020?
Yes.
And that's the person that both you and Mr. Floyd had previously purchased controlled substances from?
Yes.
Now, then in March of 2020, you got some pills, right? You remember describing that?
Yes.
And can you describe what those pills were like?
How, like, physically?
Physically.
Well, they look different to me than a normal pill. They seem like they were thicker.
Were they uniform in their size?
They weren't.
Did they have markings on them?
Yes, they did.
And you and Mr. Floyd both had those pills?
Yes,
And did you consume some of those pills?
I did.
Did they have the same effect on you as they did as your other types of opioids you had taken in the past?
No.
What was the effect this time? And what was different?
Usually, a opioid to me is like it's a pain reliever. It's something that is, kind of relaxing, takes your pain away. The pill, that time, it seemed like it was a really strong stimulant. I couldn't sleep all night. I felt very jittery.
You felt what?
Very jittery.
Okay. And so these were pills that were not bought from someone who you knew to have a valid prescription for Percocets.
No.
Were these pills purchased from Mr. Hall?
No.
Now, the pills that were purchased in March that you described,
Yeah.
did you know that those were purchased from Mr. Hall?
What?
The pills that you described in March of 2020?
No, I didn't know.
But those are the pills that kept you up, you said, all night, right?
Yes.
Did those pills continue to be around from March through May?
I don't know.
Do you recall the FBI asking whether you were getting those same pills from the same source from March to May?
I don't recall that question.
Would it refresh your recollection to review a transcript?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Counsel, what page?
Oh, sorry. Bates 45212, page 12. I'm just going to read this sitting here down in your head.
From the beginning?
No, just from about here down.
Oh, okay. Honestly, I was in such shock then. I don't even know what I mean by some of the things I said.
There was no question. I'm going to ask the copy stricken.
We'll leave it on.
Did ask a question about that
Well,
statement before approaching.
Counsel, sidebar.
So you've now had an opportunity to review that portion of the transcript, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that the FBI agents asked you from March to May if you continued to purchase those pills from the same source? Did they ask you that question?
They
Yes.
did.
And you responded, once in a while when we were desperate. Agreed?
That's what it says, yes. I don't recall saying
I'm going
that.
to object as non-responsive.
Okay.
Overruled. No, I don't. You don't remember that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Overruled. The answer will stand.
No, you were asked a couple of questions in terms of whether that overdose was caused by heroin. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And you said you didn't know.
I didn't.
Do you remember telling the FBI that the overdose was from heroin?
I was speculating.
Do you recall telling the FBI where or whom the source of that heroin was?
Once again, yes, I do remember that, but I was speculating.
And was that Mr. Hall?
No.
Was that Shawanda Hill?
Yes.
Did you know Mr. Floyd to purchase drugs from Miss Hill as well?
No.
Do you recall being asked whether he purchased drugs from Miss Hill previously?
I don't remember that, no.
May I approach the witness to, would it refresh your recollection to review a copy of your transcript?
Yes.
May I approach?
So this is to refresh your memory. There won't be a question before you at this time. So he'll go back and he'll ask a question once he returns.
Where does it say that he was buying drugs from her? That doesn't say buying.
I'm sorry?
It says getting drugs from her.
I'm gonna grab, I need to grab one previous page. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Page. This again is to refresh your memory, so there's not a question before you that you need to answer yet.
None of that says he was buying drugs from her.
Well, what silence is that? Yeah, I haven't got it. I'll go back to Floyd. Ms. Ross, does that refresh your recollection?
Yes, but none of that said he was buying drugs from her.
You were asked, do you know who the woman was that he would have gotten that from? And your response was Shawanda Hill,
Yes.
right?
I was speculating at the time. I did not know that.
Understood. And you were asked, you said he liked getting drugs from her, and you said, mm-hmm, correct? That's what you
It
said.
says that in the transcript, yes.
Now, those same pills, you ultimately got some of those same pills from March, or similar pills in May of 2020, correct?
We got pills in May that reminded me of the same feeling. I don't know if they were the same pills. I don't know where they came from.
Right, okay. So you had a second experience with those pills, right? Or a similar feeling to those pills?
I had a similar experience, yes.
Right. And that was approximately a week before Mr. Floyd's passing?
Yes.
And by similar experience, do you recall telling the FBI that when you had that, you felt like you were going to die?
I don't remember saying that, but I did see it in the transcript.
Okay. And is that how you felt, like you were going to die?
I don't remember feeling that way, no. I didn't recall even saying that.
You and Floyd, Mr. Floyd, excuse me, I'm assuming like most couples had pet names for each other.
Yes.
And what was his name for you? I mean, what were you saved? Let me strike that. What were you saved in his phone as?
Momma.
And so between Mr. Mr. Floyd's hospitalization through March and the quarantining and all of that, March and April, Mr. Floyd had been clean during that time frame?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, if you need
No,
a minute.
it's okay.
I'm sorry. I want to just, again, time frame becomes important.
Yes.
After Mr. Floyd was hospitalized in March, you were quarantining together, spending a lot of time together in March, April, and May, correct?
Yes.
And for the majority of that time, Mr. Floyd was clean, right?
Yes.
And it was your belief that Mr. Floyd started using again about 2 weeks prior to his death, correct?
I noticed a change in his behavior, yes.
That's when you noticed the changes in his behavior. And you described some of those changes in his behavior in that time frame, right?
Yes.
Do you recall telling the FBI that there would be times that he would just be up and bouncing around, and then there would be times that he would be like unintelligible?
I don't recall that, but
Would you disagree if I said that in the transcript? That's in
no,
the
I wouldn't
transcript.
disagree with that.
Were you aware that Mr. Floyd was with Mr. Hall on May 25th of 2020?
Only in the aftermath.
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Now, approximately a week prior to Mr. Floyd's death, you and Mr. Floyd again purchased pills from Mr. Morries Hall, correct?
I believe so. I'm not sure.
Do you recall telling the FBI that you bought pills from Mr. Hall 1 week prior to Mr. Floyd's death?
Yes, but I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I didn't see anything happen.
Yesterday, when you met with prosecutors, did you tell them that you were in the car at a hotel
Yes.
when those pills were purchased?
Yes.
And that you were on the phone with Mr. Floyd at that time?
Yes.
And you heard a voice in the background?
Yes.
And that was a voice you recognized to be from Mr. Hall?
I thought so, yeah.